Good morning. Today is Friday, May the 9th, 2025. It's about 10:32 Eastern Standard Time. And for the record, this is Yahweh Elohim Yahuwah. So, been a interesting 24 hours. So, I don't know, I guess a lot of frustration to know where I stand with my so-called churches, had some council meetings last night, and before I even go into that, I want to highlight something. A man's most important asset is his wife, and so many unsung heroes of the Bible were women. And to be honest, there are stories and historical accuracies and accounts that will never be revealed in truth, right? And improving that through the scripture, because the scripture doesn't exist for it. But there have been women, and to this day, my wife consort, Ashley, she walks me off more than one ledge, and to be honest, I consider her to be a saint among saints, because she has been directly responsible for saving a lot of people's butts from a lot of terrible things. So, properly, this weekend, honor the women in our lives, because they are much stronger than I think a lot of people give credit for, and especially women in the Bible. They have, behind every great man, there's usually a good woman near or close. And, it's true. So, honor your women this weekend. But, wanted to talk about a couple things, and, one of them is obviously my outrage over the name and why. So in essence, I'm going to read stuff I've already written and posted, which I've said this numerous times. Read the stuff in the post section, because more often than not, that's kind of the preview and the things that I'll be working off of. So, the name Jesus is a combination of the Greek word Lysias and the Latin version employing the letter J. Now, the name commonly used in the Catholic or Protestant Christianity did not exist until roughly 500 years ago. In the original 1611 version of the King James Bible, the letter J didn't exist in Hebrew, and the original Hebrew name for me was YHWSHUA. So, the actual literal meaning, right, Yahweh saves. So that was in print for 1500 years before it was changed. The Latin did not use the letter J until the 18th century. So 100 years after the King James Bible used Jesus' name, that name, and obviously it is a modern invention, and there's no letter J in the Greek or the Hebrew. So not only having your verifiable fact of record, right? That's to my point. But I'll just pretty much read you the right, because like I said, I really don't think people really even read them. But why is my name important to me? Because without it being recognized, my coming now will never be accepted or legitimized in the faith that currently has the majority of my faithful flocks. I genuinely want to do all things for good, and include all those who are truly faithful to me and to the doctrine as a whole. I do not want to take anyone's job away, nor do I want an image of being tyrannical, because I'm not. I honestly feel it is the first step in making things right, and the next pious thing to do for my church to truly embrace honesty, integrity, and establish trust with a religious system that I am the head of, but in no way a part of. That is an issue. By standing firm on Jesus, you're spitting in my eye and kicking me to the floor, as no one connects my true name and presence here on earth with Jesus, or I don't anyway. Interestingly enough, those closest to me, such as an aunt and a close friend, still refer to me as Jesus. But the fact is that they know me, and I still tell them to stop. But to their point, that's what they know and understand. I have washed a friend's sins and talked for hours about things of a spiritual nature with my close ones, and mostly they refer to me as Jesus. But we are working on it, and it irks me to be honest, but I'm not in any way a combative natured person, just emotionally charged and brutally honest in a society that prides itself on mass deception. And as my church, all types, names, and micro-beliefs that differ, I'm trying to solidify it all into one true church, a faith based on fact, historical accuracy, and a true joining together of my Jewish house and my Christian house. Division to me is painful and serves a temporary purpose, for when we are joined in purpose, greater is the call to the needs of all men and all women. We can move mountains and truly make the earth everything it was supposed to be. But I cannot do it without the support of the people. Without the people, there is no point or purpose. And then all roads of religion lead to death, and that aches my heart. I pride myself on authenticity and fearlessness in the face of deception. How then can I proceed? I stand ready at the door and hold it open for all those who are heavy with burden or weighted down with sin, not to judge, but to rehabilitate and rebirth a new man or new woman, not death, not damnation. But those are my few tools to use in order to establish truth, trust, and create from the ashes a religion that is worthy of me and my Godhead, and one to secure the future of all humans indefinitely. I must focus on the long game and not the short gains, but having a Western mentality that the world has adopted of right now, and here's what I want and how type attitude, it is difficult to say the least. If I left this very moment, things would remain in darkness, and the same lies and the same transgressions would plague humankind from the inside out. Not knowing your God is a terrible thing, and leads to the degradation of society first. Then the great downfall comes shortly thereafter, and this is where the world is right now. And it's inching closer and closer to a no-return or zero-point barrier in which the people lose that last flicker of truth and ultimately hope. What comes after is nothing short of hell on earth, and if you've seen what I've seen, every man, woman, and child would be saying the true name, forming around me in truth and encouraging the rest of the world to do the same. See, it is shame that propels the most notorious of evil, and then deception follows to hide that shame and accumulated sin. And the system becomes toxic and then unholy. Appeasement is a great sickness, and the result is death. I hate death so much that I evaded it, and wanted others to evade it too. But religious systems have always been bigger than me, and have always come against me. It's like owning an ice cream shop, and it started out small with a basic setup. Then the investors came around and started changing this flavor to accommodate this guest, and added this new restaurant for other guests, and then changed the name and the purpose. So now it's not even known for what it was originally. So much that it doesn't even know or care about the founder or his vision. The investors like the way it is, and the customers like it too, but it's like giving ownership of Walmart to Johnny Bravo instead of Sam Walton. So, I read that straight, so point is, I don't fear anything. The only thing I fear, honestly, is that I'm here and I know all the things that I can do and all the wonderful things that humanity could take advantage of, and and we could turn so many lives around and turn this entire Titanic around and really start anew, start fresh, you know, and everybody has had shame, you know, that sadly or weirdly, I guess, it's having shame is nothing to be ashamed of, because it is a part of the human experience. And the part of shame that you accumulate one way or the other is to bring everyone, even the most pious or the most righteous, right, or any category, but it brings people to a reckoning that every man, woman, you know, children are kind of free passed. But my point is, everybody got it wrong. So everybody needs to learn. Whether you're the Pope, or whether you're the clerk at the ice cream shop, or whether you're the, you know, you're the usher in the aisle on Sunday, or whether you're the lady in the back room, you know, cooking Sunday dinner, like whatever role, responsibility, or gender, or anything, everyone requires me to get them to a point of salvation, of clearing those sins, establishing eternal life, and continuing the human experience. At its basic function, that's what I do, and that's why I'm here. And to try to argue my purpose or being who I am, it wastes time. And that time that I have to spend doing this, right, because I have to convince my own church to tell the truth, that's a hard pill to swallow. And, you know, it's like telling that investor, you know, we're an ice cream shop. I understand that steaks sell twice as much or 10 times more than chocolate ice cream, but it's not a steakhouse, it's an ice cream shop, you know? And that's just kind of how I feel about it. And so I don't know if in this relationship, right, I as the ice cream shop, do I tell the investors to piss off? Well, I guess I can't, right? Because they're the investors. Without them, the lights go off. So it's like, okay, then do I break away from my own ice cream shop, right? Would Sam Walton then divorce Walmart because they renamed it Johnny Bravo's General Store? Like, I genuinely am confused. I don't know what to do. And I do not like my hangover type feeling of after having a day like yesterday. And it's not fair to me, it's not fair to my wife, it's not fair to my kids. But it's really not fair to the world. That's what hurts my heart. Is that in order to find or hear truth, you have to sort through hundreds of thousands of lies and hundreds of people that at any given time they only have a few percentage points of truth, and they're mixing it all together, and then they're trying through their hearts of hearts. And I get it, people are trying from their hearts of hearts to not be deceived. They don't want to get it wrong, and they want to match, you know, my coming with the clouds, and like everybody at once is forced, right? And that's, I think, the human syndrome. And this is a part of like my anger too, is people are and have been expecting that I could be washing dishes, and it's like, because I'm saved, when the Lord comes, I'll be washing dishes and I'm just going to be in the air. Like essentially this, every human, every man, woman, child, right, is in some way like going to be in a trance, like zzz. And it's not like that, number one. But number two, if you actually were to dissect your belief looking at that, what it really says is that you're going to be infatuated with your life, and then you want something that's going to stop you dead in your tracks to get your attention, that you as an individual are so important that you're going to be lifted up into the air and brought forth to me. That is like saying, right, Anywhere in the world, when mom calls for supper, she's just going to appear in front of me, grab my hand, and then teleport me to the dinner table. So I can go off and do my thing, and I know, when it's dinner time, my mom's going to come grab my hand. That's the way that sounds. And again, for humans, you've been given a mind and a process called logical sequencing. Logical sequencing is not only for your purposes, right? Because you're human beings. You have to have food, you have to have shelter, you have to have a type of government, you have to have civilization, because those are things that make being a human a great thing. The ants don't have Super Bowls, right? The penguins don't, get to talk about policies. And I'm saying, human beings are the stewards of a creation that as the true Elohim, and the thing is, I dissect myself all the time. Like, I really do. And, for all the wonderful things that are in the realms or that are in heaven, planet Earth and being with human beings is and has always been the goal, but not in a state that everyone seems to be in. Seeing that on TV yesterday, I mean, I got to a point where I angry cried. Seeing on the TV people that are, and let's just say for a minute that the Catholic Church is my church. I mean, it's supposed to be my church. Let's just go with that for a minute. I'm appalled at Fox News for having betting polls. Gambling is a sin. Why are we blatantly and openly proud of our sin? I angry cried. I was so mad. I was about to hurl my TV out of my room. I was so mad. And when I said that about the seagull, and then it was mocked. And that's the thing. What do I do? Do I get angry and do I go into spirit and take another life for people to go, oh my gosh, God's for real, like he's not happy? But it's almost like people just witness things I say or do or write as like it's a reality TV show. Like it's humorous and funny, and it's so... I can't understand why humans are so spiritually dead to me. I don't understand. And it's like if I was to go sit into a CPA's office, an accountant, and I said, I'm thinking about this investment. And if he goes, hey, well, historically, this has not been a good investment. It's pretty bad. Actually, I recommend this one because historically, this has proven to be a winner. Well, that investor, right, probably listened to what his accountant said and probably go with the good choice. So then why does this become an issue when it comes to your spiritual salvation? Right? If you went to a doctor and your doctor diagnosed you with, a broken arm, right? Well, he's going to tell you need a cast and keep it in there for this time and all these things. And, you'll accept what the doctor says because you assume he went to school and has a degree and like he's got the credentials, right? He has the pedigree. Well, through my domain, my authority, that is me, right? As Yahweh, right? As Yahuwah, I have authority over the creation, right? I work with my animals. I've proven that. I work with weather. I work with, all natural elements. I've proven that. That's my pedigree. That's to show you that I'm not some human being trying to play religion, or I'm not some human being trying to be like Jesus. And that's also where my anger comes from about my name. Is my name at birth is my name. My name at all comings is the same. And that's to my point, right? Is I don't want to look at the Catholic Church or even the Christian Church with eyes of wrath, because on one end I'm like, are you doing it on purpose because you genuinely feel that Jesus, the name, died on that cross? I can tell you with an absolute certainty that no, like, that is not truth. And I do take great offense to that, because imagine Johnny Bravo is getting all the credit for Walmart, and meanwhile Sam Walton is dead in his grave, absolutely getting no honor, no respect, no admiration for his vision, his building of, call it what you will. I mean, I'm not like a big Walmart fan, I'm saying, but it fits the scene. Because I don't want to fire and brimstone Catholic Church, and I don't want that, because I lose 1.8 billion people that are supposed to be for me. But then I also look upon the crowds at St. Peter's Basilica, and I don't see one face, I don't see one heart that I want. I see people waving their flag. I see people, betting on popes. I see people playing religious games. And people like a sporting event. That is not my people. It's not. And that's when I start to get even more upset, because then I go, it's not like they're bad people, but they're being led astray. They're betting on popes. They're gathering in mass, waiting for a man. You guys are gathering in mass, waving flags, betting, waiting on men, waiting on and hanging on every word a man is going to say or will say. And yet you could give two shits less about God himself being on your earth, telling you the truth about history, telling you what's happening in prophecy, trying to fulfill things that have never been fulfilled. If people are impressed with any of the comings in the Old Testament the first time, the second coming in the New Testament, and the third coming now, I got a newsflash. The work I have to do now, without the help of people, it's insurmountable. And I almost feel like breaking down in tears, because I am the one who saves you. I'm the one that saves you. I am the last order given in heaven. I don't have a salvation to reach up to for strength. I am the one that you reach up to for strength. And then I give you and lend you my strength. And when I am lending and lending and lending, like Sam Walton continuing to support the stores that are honoring Johnny Bravo, and Sam Walton is saying, guys, like just get it together, and it's like they spit on Sam Walton, praise Johnny Bravo, and they still expect all those goods to enter into that store next week. And if I truly was a vindictive and wrathful God, then I would have done a lot, but I didn't. And that's circling back to why women are so important, and honoring and cherishing them, because Asherah single-handedly steered that train away from catastrophe. And quite literally altered the course of history. There were things that were going to be written in your history books that I know I would not have been proud of. But I feel sometimes it's the only option I have to get people's attention. But it seems as though that not even that matters. So I genuinely don't know what to do at this point. And that's another thing. A lot of people really put more faith into like the New Testament, and Paul or John, Mark, Luke, like all these things, and the truth of it is, the actual, in the time, right, hanging out near the Sea of Galilee, going back and forth from Nazareth, going to Jerusalem, attending feasts, attending, different things. The actual scriptures and the most historically accurate accounts, when I was a spirit in 2,000 years ago, right? When I was in Yeshua, right? As the Spirit, as I'm Yahweh, right? He wouldn't have been anything without me in him, right? Just like I wouldn't be anything without me in me, I guess. I don't know how you say that, but so most of those were written on the back of goods receipts. So in biblical time, right, when the hired hands, right, would go to the fishing docks, they would have these big receipts, and they would be, they're selling, right? So they're buying and they're changing. It could be goods, whatever it was, but primarily it was around fishing. That was one of the big things at the time. So these big logs, on the back of papyrus, and then depending on where the shipments were coming in at, some used papyrus, others used a type of cloth, like a hardened cloth. Anyway, scriptures and stuff were written on the back of these things, and not one of them has survived. And because most of the actual disciples, they were not linguistically able. They were simpletons. They were simple farmers or fishers. Truly, I believe Mattheyahu was the only one that could actually accurately write. So basically, it was not as clean as your Bibles are portraying it, is my point. So it's kind of more like broken sentences and more like note taking, and this is what teacher said, or this is what rabbi said, or it really wasn't only until post Pentecost that the name Messiah really began to take root, right? Christos. So I don't like anything untruthful, and even though it can sometimes look ugly and it can stink, but the thing is, the truth will set you free. That's the thing. And so back then, it was trying to break the Jewish people of these religious ceremonies, and they were more concerned about the religious body and how it interacted on the world stage versus knowing their God, versus actually having and developing a personal relationship with me, which is why you don't hear about in the New Testament, that I was befriending these religious figures, because it's in man's mind, if you take the same logic that my coming, I'm supposed to come, and then all of a sudden, oh, Baptist church, you did great. Oh, Catholic church, you did great. Oh, Jewish church, you did great. And we leave it at this superficial faith. That doesn't do any good, because that's what it is. It's a superficial faith. Then you become no better than pagans. And that's where I get angry, is you are literally manifesting and doing the same things that pagans did, or barbarians did, that Muslims didn't do, even Eastern China. That's what I mean. They would see a pig out in the middle of the field, and they would see some weird thing, right? And then next thing you know, we got a pig statue. Oh, they do this to a goat, or they do this to whatever. I'm saying, then you become no better than pagans. And guess what? The world doesn't need any more pagan beliefs. It needs truth. And that is the best conversation to ever have when you're talking to a child. Is the best conversations are rarely ever remembered with your children when it's good job on getting an A today, or good job putting on your shoes today, or good job. It's like, you know, the most memorable conversations are typically happening when you're talking about bringing out the truth or dealing with correction. And not being afraid of the truth or correction. So that is the literal interpretation, right, of do not forsake my name, right? Do not deny my name. Because back then, I already knew what was happening in the future. And again, if you were a history buff, right, you can quite understand the Crusades and the scorched earth tactics that were actually not done for me. Because you know what? When they began the Crusades and they actually had the true name, and I already read it to you, but the true name before it was changed was, I'm pulling it up because I like to match my references to what you guys have written in your domains. So that's another thing. I was just telling Asherah, I don't like to witness on something that I can't prove in the domain, which is why I refrain from talking about a lot of things that were written on the back of goods receipts. But anyway, it was YHWSHUA. So they actually changed it first for the positive, meaning that after Pentecost, right, they combined or attempted to combine, right, Yahweh's name and my birth name. So Yehoshua, right, Joshua in ancient Hebrew is Yehoshua, and then they wanted to mix that, right, with Yahweh. So in their first change, which was done from a good point, is what I mean, right? The path to hell has been paved with good intentions. So the first time around, it was YHWSHUA. And then, quite literally, the Crusades kept falling on the wrong, like, they would invoke the name, like much how you guys are afraid and just mortified to like subscribe to my channel or even say my name, and everyone likes to use Hashem or Jesus or whatever. Like, everyone does this name masking because they're afraid of invoking me, and they're afraid they're going to be judged. And in some instances that's true, right? But in that instance, right, around the Crusades, so that's like 1092, they stopped using it because, and I don't know how you can rationalize this, but basically they would invoke the name and the Ruach, right? This is when I'm not on earth with the body. So now you're dealing with the Holy Spirit, and then the carnality portion is in the abode or in heaven or in the realms, right? So it's not interactive with the earth plane. But anyway, they were doing it for nefarious purposes. So invoking the true name was actually coming against them. So at some point they began to like not use the true name, but they still needed to grow the Roman Empire. They still needed to overthrow, I believe it was the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine Empire. So Rome has always had a thirst for world domination. That's not changed. And Rome, as a system, right, has picked up any and all leveraging opportunities it has throughout the ages. So when I look at it that way, it's very clear that, you know, in this time, that is my enemy. It's the one biggest piece of the puzzle that if now Pope Leo, and I am going to give the man a fair shake. I'm going to try not to throw any major fits, and I'm going to try to hit the reset button with everybody when it comes to this. But if Pope Leo were to address the situation and discuss that would make my, not only my day, but I would begin to see that we can come back, right? We can come back from it. We can come back off the brink. But if that never happens, and the Catholic Church or any church wants to remain in a faulty foundation, and they stand true to their faulty foundation against the truth, that is a crossroads that I do not have any options for you. I only have the one option for you, which is you must know truth to know me. And again, if Pope Leo were to do that, then the Catholic churches all around the world would get that message. And then getting rid of Rome's conscript, getting rid of the prescriptions of the King James era, getting rid of the dominance, in the Constantinople times, or the Byzantine Empire times, or the Empire time, the Ottoman, like all that is deceit, it's sinful. I can tell you that I don't want a crusade. I don't want any human being to lay one hand against another human being for my name's sake. I can promise you that. I can tell you right now that war sickens my stomach, even though I am like a warrior. I am. And in my belief, I truly believe that, some of the best warriors can be some of the best peacemakers. And I mean, I have been historically, a storm deity and a warrior type of god, which is why in the second coming, right, what you call the New Testament is the second coming, which is why I was the spirit, but I was kind of in the back seat, right, as to Yeshua's nature, Yehoshua's nature, Joshua, right, the second Joshua. His nature counterbalanced me, the Holy Spirit, and we worked well with one another, so I guess in a way, right, that was like he was a split kind of thing, dual nature. Third time being Alpha and Omega, right, I am full natured, but because the thing is, the council's view last night was actually the council's view was positive. They feel that Pope Leo is a bit of an olive branch. I'm not thrilled or excited that one of the first addresses to the faithful, what I would have preferred and what I'm still waiting for, because they say people have to have a stomach for war. And the thing is, I don't fight a kinetic battle. It's not like I've got tanks out in my backyard. No, I literally use the forces of nature, and I use my angels that work entirely in spirit. But I also can wield the powers of my light angels, and I also, as the God of heaven and earth, as Yahweh, I also have dominion over demons, and I have dominion over lower beings that essentially are created to carry out negative actions against people, places, and things. They're not something I like to use lightly. But from how I can see things, and this is what I mean, right? Without having people, a church, or anything to work with, like I'm entirely by myself. I'm working off of me, Ashura, and my kids, and I'm making some of the biggest changes in the earth domain to date. So the thing is, without that, I can only rely on my God power and my God senses, right? To come out of my flesh, I go into another's heart and mind, and I weigh it, and then it's like, gosh, I'm just 1 million in one, 1 million in two, and I mean, everyone I find, I'm like, they're all twisted up like pretzels. They don't know the truth, but their desires outweigh their desire to know the truth. 10 to 1. Most people don't give a crap about the truth. They only care about, think of food, right? They only care if it tastes good. Don't matter if it's downright poisonous. They only care if it tastes good. That's the literal John on Patmos. It's sweet on your lips and bitter in your stomach, and that's what I mean is. But I want to imagine, and I do. I lay in bed and I fantasize about this all the time. I'm like, what if the Catholic Church was to make a public announcement? What if all these Jesus signs in every church and everything else, what if they could just look at themselves for what it is, put down the idol, put down shame, and say, okay, Lord, I'm sorry. And that's the thing. I'm not convicting people of it. You could not help it. Right? Nobody could. Right? The very elect were deceived. The very elect were deceived. That is on purpose. It's like being in high school and I hear my teenager come home and she's telling me and Asher about her day, and and she's like kind of pissed sometimes because she's like, this teacher knew no one was going to pass the test. Everyone failed. And she's like, I hate that teacher. And I'm thinking, well, in all honesty, he was seeing if anybody could get it right. So he puts a really hard test up there and he expects everyone to fail. It's not the action of failure that the teacher is looking for. It's the response of failure that he is looking for. That is what I, as God, am looking for, as the response to the failure of humanity. Because you have failed my churches, you don't have my name right, and you took it upon yourself to create doctrine that I didn't say. You took it upon yourself to care more about money than to care about citizens of the earth. You care more about drawing borders and boundaries around my faith on subjects that don't matter. I couldn't even begin to try to understand what a Catholic service is all about. I don't understand it. I don't. When I am in the spirit, and I'm like, if you could see it from my eyes, like I do, I can see all these people. I can hear, and I can go into a heart, go into a mind, and I can hear what they're talking about. I can hear what they're feeling. And in most churches, I don't hear much. I don't hear much. When I go into hearts and minds, that's why I don't like doing it. Because then I want to just go there in person and walk through the aisle and say, get the hell out. Every one of you, get the hell out of here. You're thinking about the football game, and that's another thing. I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to get upset. That's another thing. I've made that kind of gaffe before. These Christians and Catholics, right? They're wearing their Phillies cap. Like, it's nonsense. And you do it to mock me. You stupid news reporter. Like Fox News, I want a personal apology. I really do. Or a public one. Public one would be better. Because the handling of things that are so serious. Look, me trying to save people is a challenge. I don't know if people understand that. But it isn't magic. It is an actual thing I have to do. And it is the equivalent if the Titanic is going down and I'm like, guys, there is not enough life rafts to go around, so I need to shuttle you. That means I need to move quickly. I need to get 50 people from that boat onto that boat and get that boat back over to the Titanic and get people out of the water. People using Jesus, people standing against me, people in every church, under man's skirts, whatever. All the crap you do now is literally as if we were in the Titanic scene. And I'm in a boat and I've got the flashlight and I'm like, all right, where's everybody at? And then they all swim away in negative freezing water to try to get away from me. I'm like, you're going to die if you're trying to hang out near the sinking massive ship. It's going to take you under. We don't care. We don't care. You don't care? Well, that doesn't make any sense. Of course you should care. You don't want to die in the freezing water, do you? But that's how people are. And I wonder where this comes from. It comes because the disease you all have, idolatry. and you are comfortable with deception, and you are uncomfortable with the raw truth, and you are uncomfortable with living a life maybe 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, even 80 plus years where you've been steadfast and solid, and you think you've had a foundation that's built on faith, and you think it's airtight, only to find out from God himself, me, that it's wrong. And that you feel that all the work you've ever done, that all these things that makes you look stupid, or, oh my gosh, we could never come out publicly and say that Jesus isn't the real name of God, and like we kind of fucked up all this thing. Because again, I'm the teacher that gave the test, and I knew everybody would fail it. Again, I don't want anybody to think they're higher than the next person. Because even as I am truly Elohim on earth, I am Yahweh Elohim Yahuwah. I have memories from the Old Testament. I have literally the sights and the smells. I can literally tell you the heat of the sand and the smell of the air. And I can tell you how even with Moshe's testaments, how ornery the people were. Gosh, I could still tell you today how no one really cared, ever has really cared. Pharaoh and all his people were very much kind of like the Catholic Church, I guess. They're like, we don't know who that is. Even though the gods that they worshipped were created by me. The gods that Pharaoh worshipped were given titles and crowns by me, Elohim Yahweh. And the Pharaoh was mocking Moses because they didn't know me. And this is what I mean, right? I come upon the pharaohs of modern times, of America, Rome, or anywhere, right? They're like, we don't know who Yahweh is. We don't know who Yahuwah is. We don't know who Yahushua is. We know Jesus. So, praise Jesus. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me is what it is. It really is. Oh my gosh. And the thing is, this happens today. Like, I don't even know sometimes, because I'm like, most of my videos are about my name, or I'm freaking out about it, and it's like, I'll be out in public, and me and Ashra going out to like breakfast. It's a chore. Because I'm like, okay, just go to breakfast, right? Got my little sunglasses on, going out to breakfast, and it's like 100% of the time, I'll see those people look at me, and they'll go, Jesus. And I'm literally like, I can't. I mean, I'm happy that they're at least acknowledging something. Like, out of all the things that I'm literally raving about, they're like, there's Jesus. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't get mad, and like that's the thing. I show grace, and I'm like, hello, all these things, and it's like, or like, oh, it's the Son of God, right? Or it's God himself, right? And the thing is, the truth is, it's God himself, right? Like, I am one. I truly am. And, I typically take on that, Son of God feeling, honestly, to remain humble and to remain grounded with earth and with humanity. Because I have to try, but I want to try to adopt kind of that second portion of me, that I'm almost able to experience things how you guys experience it, because that helps me work through issues for you, right? Because a part of like human culture is very integral to us in heaven, and a part of that system is it'd be like having a corporation, right? But the corporation employs every human being. And a part of your natural path is like everyone starts out at entry level, and then as you learn your skills, you learn purposes. Those purposes begin to split. Then you kind of rank up with title, with merit, with understanding. But all of those platforms require the basic functionality, which is truth. and obedience. Because if you're in the military, I'm kind of going all over the place on parables, but I'm trying to really tie this up together. So if you're in the military and your commander says, in 3 minutes, go down to that ravine, bank to your left, take cover on that side wall, then the 4 of you go down that way and then take that wall. 4 of you, go down to the center, set up the mortar tubes. Like, the battle commander sees in his mind what the battlefield looks like and how it's about to play out. And you guys get that when it comes to military, but you don't understand that when it comes to like anything else. And so like being a part of the true church, especially in the early church, in all times, early church being pulling the Israelites out of, Egypt, second time around trying to pull the truth, and put it up on a pedestal in the Jewish community, and then now having to pull everybody out of the Catholic Church and out of the Jewish church and say, look, the most important thing to me is I want to talk to people. I want to know your problems so I can fix them. I want to be able to go around earth, and I want to know that my people have clean hearts and clean minds, and they're prepared for me to do great and mighty things in their life. I want to be able to go into that heart of mine and say, good, I don't have idolatry. They know my name. They're expecting my spirit. Now I'm going to heal you. Now I am going to open up pathways and doors. For you, it's going to be great financially, but bipartisanly, your 10% is going to contribute down here. That 10% is then going to go here, or these people, or this church, or all these things, right? And then now, like even today, humans will reference like, the New Testament and, Joseph of Arimathea, how he was so polite and gave the grave to us, and it's like, hey, I totally appreciate that. And then today, he's almost like a mini hero figure. Where are those hearts now? Where are the hearts for the end days church? Where are the hearts for the transition for me to clean up the entire human history, get it ready, set, go, for us to turn the page and walk into it new, to walk into it with new men and new women, to have babies that are going to be coming down the pipe now. I mean, they're happening now. Asherah, have been working hard to literally give out these babies to every womb available. I've said it. And even in my own family, I've got my sister. She's, coming forth with one of our new earth babies. So is my brother. Nathan's coming forth with a new earth baby. And speaking of Nathan, my brother, actually, half brother, he, I actually tried to name him Noah when he was little, and then his name got changed to Nathan by his aunt, Pat, who I didn't like. Spiritually speaking, she was adjacent to me, and she was a big fan of Jesus. So that's an interesting thing. I've actually had more issues and qualms with humans on earth that have been really big into Jesus, even though I am the real Jesus. And that just shows you how far away idealisms are from the belief. Because I'm a fact, like I'm a living, breathing person. But as I've said this numerous times, right? When I am out of flesh, and I can come out of flesh while I'm still alive, I do it all the time. That's how I go to counsel, and it's not astral projection. I don't want people to get confused, like, oh, is this guy just talking about a religion based on astral projection? Absolutely not. Astral projection is very similar, but what you're doing is when you're astral projecting, you're actually becoming a receiver. So you are then kind of at an elevated state where you're able to interpret information that's occurring in the cosmos or in the stream. There's a stream that is a barrier between the earth domain and the heaven domain. It's almost like an axis, or better said, like the top is one plane and the bottom is another plane, right? And really, I mean, you can't go through it. Humans, you can walk, you do all these things, But if you were to walk around it, well, you got the exact same thing, right? But they're still night and day. Well, when I give you a spirit, you basically get like a hole, like a doorway. And then you're able to go back and forth. So when I am like pissed, right, and I'm yelling at, pastors or teachers or preachers, what makes me mad is not only do they not understand that, but they're not guiding you to an eternal life. Because if I sat here and just said that curtain, praise that curtain, bless that curtain, we love that curtain, we're going to hold rituals and light incense and candles, and we're going to put 1 billion people around the curtain, and the curtain's still a curtain. Doesn't have any eyes or ears or breath or noise. It doesn't do anything. It can't physically do anything for you, right? It could maybe save you if you were in like a snowstorm, and even that, it wouldn't be very good at what it does. So I genuinely just want to save people, because guess what? If I get to save you, that means I get more company in heaven and a part of other creations. The angelic only, right? They don't have free will. They're like, I don't use the word minions because that's an insulting kind of way, but like, they're too perfect to create. They're too perfect to create. Meaning that they are obedient to the things I say. They know the purposes. They know the mechanisms that make this work and that work and function. They're all about function and purpose. So it's kind of like having my bees. I can count on my bees for my honey. I can count on the bees for this. But I'm not going to ask my bees to go build a car, you see. I don't ask my angels to go, hey, can I take you from your perfect life here in spiritual nirvana? I need to drop you down on this planet for about 800 years because I'm trying to work something out in the genome of a certain food that I'm going to give the next round of humans. See, that's not fair to the angels, nor would they. They would do it. But guess what happens when that happens? Not good, right? That was my last thing, and I think I'll wrap it up. But, I'm not even going to go into that. I think we're going to cap it there. So, yeah. I think we'll cap it there. I was actually, I don't know. I was going to make a reference to the laying workers. So, a laying worker in a beehive is when a beehive essentially loses its queen for over 21 days, and then out of necessity to try to survive, because all the girls, mostly beehives are made of girls, the boys in the beehive, they don't do anything other than mate with the queen. Well, ending up with laying worker syndrome, they start to lay eggs. Well, all the eggs they lay are male. They can't help it. Biologically, that's just the way it goes, right? So they require a fertilized female to be able to lay female eggs. Female eggs are worker eggs, and if something happened to that queen, then the females can then raise a second queen by feeding her royal jelly. Well, in the humanscape, it's very much like the human population as a whole, right? I'm not a girl, obviously, but like I'm the queen bee, and I'm gonna make it the hive right again. But if I'm constantly having to fight with the female laying workers, everything they lay, they can't help it, are male useless drones. Every religion in the world that doesn't know who I am or embrace my identity, my coming, and my abilities, and my power, they're just laying useless drones. It's not helping the colony, and eventually it will die, as if all these little worker bees are all claiming they're the queen, and they're like, we lay eggs. Okay. That's the wrong kind of egg, right? So through mass faith, they're generating, stuff. Like they're generating power, like a little nuclear power plant, because all human beings possess the ability, right, to deal with the earth domain. That's another thing, right? the future of my people with me in it are going to be exercising your authority through the creation more than approaching your problems through a mechanical means or solving your problems through, material. Most of your problems should and will be solved through spiritual or supernatural intervention, not so heavy in material. Because if you were to look at it this way, you're backwards in your thinking that, well, more stuff, more civilization, more higher buildings, more this, more. You think it actually makes you stronger, smarter, and more capable. When in reality, if I compared you to, let's say, hypothetically, another planet, and I'm like, look at all the things they've accomplished without needing to create this, because if you create this, you're destroying that. Every time you're solving one of your inconveniences, you're creating massive inconvenience for a species here, or a landscape, or a function, or a purpose of the planet. So the true mark of success for any human civilization is actually to be able to accomplish more with less. To be able to accomplish more through supernatural power, assisting your God. That's what I do, right? I am not dying, but I'm saying I am wanting to give people power. That's what I want. I want to empower people that I can trust with my power, that aren't going to do it for stupid or silly or illicit gain. I want to be able to empower people to say, I have the will of Elohim. I have the will of Yahweh himself. Yahweh himself has told me this is what we're doing, and as a human being, you should be excited to do that. That's what I mean. That's where we should be. But, well, happy Friday, guys. Happy Shabbat. And, I don't know if I'll do a video tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. Either way, I hope going forward in the future, I hope some things change. Because it can't continue the way it is. And I think I have to hope that this video will find the right people, and I hope it won't be wasted, because there's nothing more that I hate the most than to have to tee up things of a periled nature or bad outcomes. But to my point, my plan Z is to eliminate every human being on earth and then to rebirth them under the rules and regulations of living in society on planet earth, knowing me, their God, their Elohim, by the right name, and there'd be no confusion. That's my desire. And I would like to be able to accomplish that without casualty, without mass death. And I'd like to have some faith in me. Those of you have faith in me that I'm going to accomplish that agenda. I will. And I want people to be happy to walk that out. I want not killing people, not at all. I'm saying to be able to get the world hooked on truth, to get the world to be able to get hooked on authenticity, to get the world to be hooked on their real God, who just so happens to be in person on earth as your Messiah. That's what I mean. You guys get the benefit of not having to go, oh, okay, so there's Peter over there. All right, he owns a church, and then there's Jesus, right? He's a son of God, but we don't know God's name anyway, so he's just Jesus. He's just, he's there praying that cross, and look at his little dead body on a piece of wood. That's where you go. And then, if you do a no, we're gonna use Mother Mary. Oh, and hey, if you're a porn addict, you can use Saint Carlos. We just sainted him. Like, if you listen to yourselves through the eyes of me, or even listen to yourselves, like, without an opinion, let yourself form the opinion about yourself from a righteous perspective, from a holy perspective, from a God view perspective, you wouldn't be able to bear your own crosses because you're shameful. That's what I mean. So, all right, we'll see where it goes. we'll see where it goes. Because again, if I'm continuously falling on dead ears, then I don't even think Asher is going to be able to save the day again. We're getting that close. So.